So I kind of wanted to break down the lighting layout that I talked about in the last video and how we get that higher production value look on a smaller budget. So I'm going to go through 4 recent projects where we've kind of done that and kind of show you what the setup was and how we maximized it and made the most of it. Reason being is because I'm kind of consolidating that lighting kit all into a 1620 Pelican, and I'm pretty impressed that it all fits in there, which is nice. So I'm not carrying 4 or 5 different cases. I can just carry this one case, so that's going to be awesome. I know I've talked about my travel setup, which is in a 16 or 1560, the smaller travel carry Pelican, but this is what I'm going to use for anything local where I'm just driving to, where I'm not renting out a full grip truck or anything like that. So first job is in a studio apartment. Lots of natural light, lots of big windows, and that's what we want. We want to work off that natural light to compensate for the fact that we don't have budget for bigger lights to kind of manipulate and get exactly how we want to. The tricky part here was we were dealing with some in and out cloud coverage. The weather was a little spotty, a little rainy. We were supposed to shoot in the balcony, ended up shooting inside. So you're kind of waiting in and out for that light to kind of consistently even out. So for this, very straightforward, very simple. We have 2 big windows. We shot towards the living room scene. You can see here we have a big sliding glass door in the background, and then we have one off to the side of the talent. That side is going to act as our key light, flooding through that space, filling the whole room, white walls everywhere, so it kind of evens out and it fills your fill side as well. And then that back window, that's going to be kind of your backlight rim light. In these projects, we don't really use a lot of backlight or rim light. We kind of just work with the space. That's how it is. Obviously, if you want 3-point lighting, you could do that. You could also add a catch light if you wanted to. But again, with these, we're moving so quickly, we don't have time to set up catch lights and kind of position those just perfectly. So we're not dealing with that. But in this one worked out. We have that back window filling in the space and kind of flooding that area behind her. Then we have the big window kind of acting as our key and fill. Really, the only thing we did here is we took the Zhiyun Molus B500. We put that outside the window. I know you're thinking, well, you already have the sun pounding through that window and you're getting plenty of light. Why would you put it in there? We want a little bit more wrap. That couch kind of lined up with the wall right there. So where the sun was positioning and everything, it was kind of cutting off right at the face. And so we wanted to wrap that sun around a little bit more. So we just moved that G300 over further to kind of wrap the sunlight and more directly hit her face. And it gives us a little bit more harsh look. The sun's up higher, so yeah, we're still getting a lot of flood, but adding that extra light in there, we put the reflector on it and just kind of put it through that window and just moved it over slightly so it was more directly hitting her. And just kind of working off that sunlight. That's pretty much all we did. And of course with this, we start with our wide shot and then we move in. Once we got in closer, we did add the 100 watt tube light by Zhiyun. I love that thing. It's 100 watt RGB. We put that on the floor, which is the barn doors, and some diffusion on it, just to get a little bit of fill under the eyes and just kind of even that out. So put that on the floor, and because it's got the barn doors and everything, it's very easy to direct that, whereas most tube lights just kind of fill the space. I think I was only at 10% maybe. And then on the fill side, we just put in a big negative fill. Simple solution, 5-in-1 reflector, use the black side, get it as close as you can, staying out of frame, and you're going to get that negative fill. Reason being, again, that room, all white walls, white floors, I think, the rug as well. So it's flooding the whole space with light, and so we wanted a little bit more contrast. So just bringing in that negative fill as close as we can. We're still going to get detail on that dark side, but you can see it worked out, and we got a little bit more contrast between our fill and our key side. And that was pretty much it. And once you start wide and work your way in, it really makes it easy to kind of work with that situation and work your way around the lighting setup. Second shoot, this one was outside. So again, working off natural light. We shot towards that back patio area, which is the sun was out in that back and kind of going along the top there. And so there really wasn't a lot of space back there at all to work with. We had about 2 to 3 feet where those trees were along the fence line. Everything else was going to be in frame. There was nothing to hang from up top or anything we could put on that back side. Otherwise it would have been frontal, but we're working off the sunlight and that's kind of what we wanted to do. So all we did here was, again, we took the B500 this time. I didn't have it for the first project. Put the reflector dish on it, and you can see I just tucked it in those trees, and it just barely stayed out of frame, which is great because it's compact, easy. I can put it on a very lightweight C-stand. Got as close to the fence as I need to, put the dish on it, and just spot it on that wall. And I think I have a shot where we flickered it on and off just to see what it was doing. And you could see on that sidewall, it actually still, working with the sunlight, it still does a good amount. And again, what we're doing here is we're just using it to wrap around with the sunlight and just kind of fill in the space a little bit more. Sunlight's directly overhead, so we want to kind of bring that level down a little bit, just again, so we're not getting any under the eyes, kind of even it out, soften it out, and kind of wrap it around that wall to directly where he's going to be sitting at that chair. Typically, we would throw up more diffusion, but again, these are budget shoots, so we didn't really do any of that. All we did was, again, negative fill where we could. There might have been 1 or 2 shots where we used the white side of the 5-in-1 reflector just to get a little bit more fill. Again, because we're shooting from all that one side, and so I think it got a little bit dark 1 or 2 shots. But otherwise, we're using negative fill right up along the other side. That sunlight outside, you're still getting plenty of fill. That's kind of all we did. What I've started to do recently in these projects where I don't have the space to put in diffusion or a softbox or reflector or just hang any kind of muslin is I got these nifty little things off Amazon. I'll link them below. The ones I have are good up to a 500 watt. It's just an extra layer of diffusion. I think the ones I have are newer, but it's just basically that 5-in-1 reflector type stuff. And it's just diffusion. You can wrap it on the reflector. And so those are great because if you don't have space to put in diffusion, you can still get a little bit. Yeah, it's a little close to the light source and it's not going to be as effective as getting a diffusion close to your talent or a bigger diffusion further away from the light source. But in a pinch, if you don't have space like I did here, we had 3 feet of space and nowhere to put diffusion anywhere. On the budget that we're working with, that was an option that worked. And we don't have the power or the output to bounce anything for this either. So it's a quick and easy solution. It helps a little bit. It does soften it up some. And that's just what we're trying to do here. And that's the only light we use for this. The B500 had plenty of output for this, worked great. I could have stuck on the SmallRig Fresnel if I wanted a little bit more spot, but this is fine. We kind of wanted to just flood the space and again, just wrap that sunlight around. Project number 3. This one was indoors and this was on a 2nd floor. Another interesting, challenging one. So again, we had big windows. We're working off natural light. Again, that's key to getting these higher level looks if you can work with the natural light instead of trying to fight against it or trying to completely go by non-natural sources. The trick here is since we're on the 2nd floor and we're on a budget, we don't have massive combo stands to just shoot up to the 2nd floor. We don't have a cherry picker or anything like we can stick outside there. Can't hang anything off the windows. And because we're starting with our wide shot, we can't put anything along those windows either because it's going to be in frame. So what we did here is we just took, again, a 5-in-1 reflector, got as close as we could without getting in frame, and then we bounced the 500 off that to kind of fill the space. In addition, I have this little mirror that I just stuck a baby pin mount on the back of, and so I attached that to a C-stand arm, and I kind of put that in the center of that 5-in-1 reflector kind of. And what I'm doing here with this is to just get a little bit of a spot source on that back wall, just to create a little contrast in the lighting and just some texture back there. Also, you can see I added I think it's the GVM 300 watt RGB light. It's a good light, solid light. The only thing I don't like about that light is the kind of power bank that it comes with. It has green magenta adjustments, and of course it's RGB. I added this, again, just to flood that space a little bit more. The 500 was doing great, but I just wanted to kind of even it out. Since that wall was so big, I wanted a little bit more spread to get an even tone across the whole space. I usually keep that light on me for these jobs just because in case I need something a little more power with RGB, that does great. And Zhiyun doesn't make an RGB light that powerful yet. So for now, that's what I'm working with. Plus it's got your green magenta adjustment as well. On the other side, we started out in front of the table. And so I took the Molus B500 and we put some white muslin on the floor and we just shot that down to shoot up off of the floor and kind of reflect onto her face underneath her eyes. We did this cool shot where she kind of stepped over the camera and then a shot where she was looking down at her phone. So we wanted a little bit of fill underneath the eyes. So bouncing off the floor, spread it out nice and even, makes it really easy to work with. So that's what we did there. Since again, we're competing with the window, we need a little bit more output. So shooting that against a white object on the floor, you could do the same with a 5-in-1 reflector or just B-board from Home Depot, whatever you want to do. I had some muslin there, so we just kind of situated that. And you can kind of manipulate it however you want to and get it out of the way. So that worked well for that. Again, since we start wide, once you're pushing in, it's just a matter of moving your lighting in as you need to or adjusting, tweaking. It pretty much stayed the same the whole way. The only thing that really changed is once we got in tighter, we were able to move those lights a little bit closer just to continue to have that wrap around her as we're kind of blocking more window light. We just kind of move it further and further around. And of course, then we added a tube light once we got up close, again, to get rid of anything under the eyes and just get a little bit of fill and then the negative fill as well, giving that contrast. And that is setup 3. Lastly, setup number 4. This one looks really cool. I like the colors in this, the textures, everything about this. This one's really cool. Sunlight was at the front of the house for this project pretty much. Again, going overhead, we're shooting midday. So it's coming through those 2 front windows. We opened up the blinds, so we're getting that sun fill the room. And then we put the B500 and the G300 in those little gaps. I don't even think we were full power. I think the B500 was at like maybe 50 and the G300 was probably 75% or something in there. And we just put those in those 2 outlets, reflector dishes on. I think we did have the SmallRig Fresnel on the B500 just because I wanted to get a little more sourcey in there, a little bit more direction with it. And we shot both of these through 5-in-1 reflectors, or just white muslin, to fill the space and give it a nice, softer look. Behind the couch, there was another window with blinds. We closed those blinds, and then that was pretty much it. Because the space is so big, we really didn't need negative fill. I think there was one shot where we ended up popping the GVM300 into the corner just to give a little bit of fill. It was getting dark and kind of dropping, falling off. Other than that, those two lights stayed in those little gaps at the front of the house where that table is, in those windows. We did have to move them and tweak them around to keep them out of frame for some shots, but because they're small, lightweight, compact, they don't have big ballast. We didn't have big soft boxes. This is a light and you got a dish on it. Same with the G300, super lightweight. You can tighten up your C-stands pretty narrow and you don't have to worry about them falling over. And we were able to kind of move them back and forth behind those little gaps in the walls to keep them out of frame, and worked out great. Again, once we got up close, tube light, and that's pretty much it. Negative fill where we needed to. But again, for these, we're pretty much working with one big giant source, and that's it. The light we get from our key pretty much does the work of the fill as well. We typically don't need a backlight. Again, with those windows, as she walked through the hallway, it's coming behind her anyway, so you're getting a little bit of a rim backlight there. And then as she's sitting on the couch, the window is your backlight there if you really wanted it. And so you're getting plenty of that. So you're working with the space that you have allows me to keep a much smaller lighting setup and work on these tighter budget projects and still get a really good look. And now with this 1620 Pelican that I've just repurposed, I can fit the B500 in there. This is my key for a lot of these projects now. So the B500 fits in there, the Molus G300 fits in there, the 100 watt tube light by Zhiyun fits in there, the X60 RGB 60 fits in there, the 100 watt light fits in there, all of it fits in there, along with all the reflector dishes, and I think I can fit the GVM300 in there as well. So I'm gonna have a lot of output, a lot of power in that 1620 Peli case. Before, I had a smaller, like 1560-ish Pelican for the 500 and the 300, and then I had, of course, the case that comes with the Zhiyun tube light and the case that comes with the, and then I had a separate package for the GVM light. But if I can get all of them into this one Pelican, that's going to save me a lot of space. And especially since I get the reflector dishes in there, I don't have to worry about banging those up as well. So that's how we lit these last 4 projects. If you have any questions, let me know.